Hello, my name is Steven Eiderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. Thank you for joining me again this weekend as we go into the next section of stuff we're going to be studying. And we are going to be returning back to a previous author again. I guess I have some favorites, and we're going to be going back to Emmet Fox. Now, the reading we're going to do today is just a singular standalone reading. And I selected it because I think it's very relevant to what's going on today in today's society, culturally, in the world. And I think it's very important to remember it as a practice. So you might remember Emmet Fox from the book Sermon on the Mount. We will be, starting next week, I will be going into the next chapter past the Beatitudes, labeled As a Man Thinketh. We did do a book called As a Man Thinketh. That was from James Allen, a personal favorite book of mine and definitely favorite author. We just did a little bit more of him from the Byways of Blessedness. And we might revisit another chapter in that book at some point in the future. But starting next week, we will be doing Emmet Fox, Sermon on the Mount, and doing the third chapter. But today, I wanted to do a reading from, let's get back here. It's called Be Still. It's a pamphlet. It's a booklet. So Emmet Fox released, these are all my Emmet Fox books up here. He's released a couple of different actual full-length books, which is usually compilations of reading. Sermon on the Mount is definitely his most well-known. His Around the World, Around the Year with Emmet Fox. It's also very, very well-known, especially in recovery communities. Emmet Fox is well-known purely because he was one of the people that was being read, and they were actually going to his, you could call them sermons, you could call them lectures, I think is more appropriate term. Some of the early people in AA that started the 12-step movement were listening to what he had to say. And things from Sermon on the Mount got brought into the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as well, which then transposed to all the other 12-step fellowships. So a lot of the stuff I read is back what they were reading when they started the 12-step movement. That's where a lot of my spiritual grounding came from. So yes, today we'll be reading one of his booklets, though. This is booklet number 10, and it is called, Be Still, A Treatment Against Fear. So I'm not going to read the entire booklet. It's quite short. I think it's only 17 pages, and they're small pages, as you can see, right? It's not a big thing. It's not very long, but for the reasoning I picked it, the whole reading isn't relevant. Now, what the reading is actually about, what this booklet is based on and expands upon, is from the Bible in the book of Psalm, specifically Psalm 46. So what we're going to be picking out of this is Psalm 46, verse 10. All right. That's the verse we're going to be kind of exploring and digging into a little bit. I'm going to do a reading from this first, and then I will be kind of just picking some pieces out of it and then making some comments along the way and kind of expand upon why I picked this. So again, this is booklet 10 by Emmet Fox, titled Be Still, A Treatment Against Fear. You can find them on Amazon. I think that's where I got these, but DeVore's publication, I think, owns most of the rights to Emmet Fox at this point. Or is at least the booklets like this, because there's a whole bunch of different ones that I have accumulated over the years too. But so here we go. We're going to do a reading, which is Emmet Fox's expansion of verse 10 from Psalm 46. Here we go. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. This really is probably the most wonderful phrase in the whole Bible. It really is the whole Bible in a nutshell. Be still and know that I am God. This is just the very last thing that we want to do when we are worried or anxious. The current of human thought that Paul calls the carnal mind is hurrying us along to its own ends and seems much easier to swim with it by accepting difficulties, by rehearsing grievances, by dwelling upon symptoms, than to draw resolutely away in thought from these things and contemplate God, which is the one way out of trouble. Train yourself to rise above the hurrying tide of error. Error is always hurried. To sweep you off your feet is its master strategy. And turning your back upon conditions, however bad they may seem. Be still and know that I am God. Even in your prayers, there is a time for vigorous treatment, and there is also a time to cease active work and, having done all, to stand, to be still and know that I am God. This, of course, does not mean merely doing nothing or going away to concern oneself with some secular thing such as reading a novel or a newspaper. It is being still to know that God is God. Such stillness is the reverse of laziness or inaction. The still dwelling upon God is the quietest but most potent action of all. I love that reading. I really do. I think it's a fantastic expansion on just one verse. There's a lot of good stuff about the rest of it, but I wanted to cover this in this one episode, was this verse. Now, the be still and know that I am God, right, is something that has, and if I turn my head over here, I have a Bible opened to it just for context here. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. This has been, I read this a very long time ago, early on in my sobriety, probably, the first couple of years, I guess, to probably before my third anniversary of sobriety. But, and it's helped me through a lot of things. It's really been something that's helped me stop and reconfigure. So, one reason I like Emmet Fox's expansion, his interpretation of it, his understanding and explanation of it, is because he starts with, this is probably the most wonderful phrase in the whole Bible. Now, for anyone that knows Emmet Fox, he was... he studied the Bible diligently. He studied Scripture thoroughly, right? So he wrote books and books and books upon interpretation and on his understanding from a metaphysical perspective. And he was a New Age thinker, which not everyone agrees with, but he found some real solid truths that has helped many, 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 many people in the recovery community, in life, people that don't have substance use problems, but are working through other things. And for him to actually say, this is probably the most wonderful phrase in the whole Bible, that carries weight. After you understand who Emmet Fox is, you understand that carries weight. It emphasizes the importance of this one verse. He said that it sums up the Bible in just this one statement. That it just, the whole Bible is the Bible in a nutshell, I believe, is how he shared it, right? It really is the whole Bible in a nutshell. Be still and know that I am God. And then he talks about why it's so important, and how we usually like to drift into these negative thought patterns, right? He names a couple of them. There's probably way more we can name, but he says this is the very last thing that we want to do when we are worried or anxious. Now, that's why I bring this up. There is so much worry. There is so much anxiety. Both of those are born from fear. And I don't think it needs to be said that there's one specific place that it's coming from. In today's world, it's depends on where you are as to what you're worried about, what you're experiencing, right? And there's a lot of fear that fuels this worry, a lot of fear that fuels this anxiety, right? And he acknowledges that being still and knowing that I am God, knowing that God is the very last thing that we want to do when we have this fear and this anxiety, right? This is the current human thought, as Paul calls the current of human thought that Paul calls a carnal mind. So this animalistic mind is hurrying us along to its own ends. So it seems much easier to swim with it by accepting difficulties, by rehearsing grievances, by dwelling upon symptoms. So when we get worrisome, when we get anxious and fearful, we instantly just go, right? We instantly just start following this fear. We get on the train and we're riding right along. And this brings us to some really scary places. It's a projection. There's a term called catastrophizing. There's a lot of people make up scenarios in their heads that will never happen, but they've convinced themselves that this is a potential that could happen. Or if there's some substance to it, and then they just build this huge mountain out of a molehill, right? Sometimes the fears have a basis in reality, and then we grow them out of proportion and scale, and then the fear becomes immobilizing from a scenario we've made up in our own mind. But that is what the carnal mind, that is what this animalistic mind, this primitive maybe mind is a better way to say it, does. And he goes, to draw resolutely in thought from these things, from those old worries and those old grievances and those old difficulties, from those old fears, and contemplate God, which is the one way out of trouble, right? We don't really, that's not our first thought. We don't sit there and say, well, what would God do in this situation? I would love to say that is my first thought. It is a goal of mine to make that thought my first thought as much as possible. But unfortunately, I still have a carnal mind, a primitive mind that runs with fear, that builds these fantastic fantasy scenarios that I feel like I need to cower away from. So it is not my first instinct to draw resolutely in thought from these things. And he's also saying, he doesn't say separate yourself physically. He's like, draw resolutely in thought from them, right? So change the way you're thinking. Like James Allen, Emmet Fox also knows the problem originates in the mind, right? The problem is a lack of faith, the lack of belief even, or confidence in that belief, if you do have it. And then these thoughts start running and doing whatever it is they need to do to get you worked up. So to draw resolutely in thought from these things, so to stop thinking about the grievances and the difficulties and these problems, right? And stop building up this mountain in your head, and to contemplate God, which is the one way out of trouble. We don't do well. The solution to all of this is to pause and focus on God. Our natural tendency is to get lost in this selfish and self-centered thinking, right? Because that's what fear is. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be even fear at loss of other people can be, is selfish most of the time. Like I can't lose this person. I can't, what am I going to do if this happens to somebody, right? Like these seem like genuinely good things to think about, but they usually are still focused on self and self-centeredness. Right. So things happen, whatever it might be. We get kicked into this selfish, self-centered frame of thinking, and we become fear-based for our own well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, whatever it might be. And then we're out making up all this stuff in our head and getting scared of it. Right. So our natural tendency is to be selfish and self-centered. The only way really through that is to stop, to pause, as they say in 12-step fellowships, right? To Pause when agitated or doubtful, and some of the fellowships say. And we need to focus and contemplate, which some would consider a meditation, right? Meditate on God, whatever that God is to you too. And I want to add in here, I know this is a Bible based off a Bible verse. I understand that a Christian God is not what everyone that listens to this podcast considers. But what this contemplation, this action, this practice is applicable to whatever your concept of God is. Okay, this can be universe, source. It can be any major Abrahamic religion. It can be any Eastern practice, right? Stop and focus on what the God of your understanding, your higher power, the power greater than yourself, whatever terminology you want to use. Stop and focus on the properties of that God. Stop and focus on how that God would have you be, right? Don't focus on your selfish and self-centered fears and desires. Focus on how you would have to be to act in a godlike or Christ-like way, or righteous way. So yes, this is biblical, Christian, but this works with any concept of God. This works with any understanding of the source and energy or universe or nature, whatever it might be. When you pause and contemplate that and focus on that instead, that is the one true way out of trouble. And then he goes on to say, train yourself to rise above the hurrying tide of error. Error is always hurried. To sweep you off your feet is its master strategy. I love that. When are most mistakes made? In a moment. Second nature, right? Quick reaction, quick impulse, right? When we get ourselves wrapped up in these bad situations, it's usually because we've made some quick reactions or brash decisions, whatever it might be. And we don't make room for God. We just make a selfish or a self-centered decision most of the time, right? Because we're rushing, we're hurried, as it says here. Train yourself to rise above the hurrying tide of error. Error happens when you're rushing it. Error happens when you're just going through it, trying to make a decision that best serves yourself rather than best serves the God of your understanding. When you act in self-interest rather than a service mindset, that's where all the errors happen, right? We need to pause and make space for the God of our understanding to come into this whole thing. Or what are we doing? And I know a common objection to doing this is like, but it's happening right in the middle of everything. There is no situation or circumstance that you cannot take half a breath even, that you cannot pause and say, how would God have me be? And even if the situation calls for a sense of urgency, even if the situation calls for a sense of even immediacy, if you do not take that half a second to say, how would God have me be? You're putting yourself in a lot of danger, and a lot of risk of making an error. And making an error, even if in a urgent situation, is much less favorable than pausing and making a right decision, right? There is always time to say, be still and know that I am God, right? That one sentence, how many words is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 words. Be still and know that I am God, can reset your entire nervous system. I swear, at least it can for me. if I can pause and I say that, suddenly things change. The way I see things change. The way I understand things change. The impulses I have to make actions change. I find peace. God would have me be peaceful. God would have me be decisive. God would have me be honest and kind and loving and forgiving, compassionate, courageous, faithful, integrous, of service. That's how God would have me be. And when I remember that, when I take the moment and say, be still and know that I am God, I am here through my actions to serve that God of my understanding in whatever way that may be. And that can help me. That has helped me through so many things. I can't explain to you how much help that's given me throughout my course of recovery and my sobriety, and then my re-engagement with the world, my new way of living. Because so easily does my old habits kick in. So easily does my old perspective and thinking and behaviors kick in. And I'm not talking about drinking and drugging. I'm talking about just my selfishness and self-centeredness. Those kick in very easily if I'm not attentive. I mean, it's a lot better now because I've done a lot of work, but they can still show up. So to stop in every circumstance that I remember to do it and say, be still and know that I am God, can save you from a lot of bad decisions, from a lot of impulsive behavior. And he next says, this of course does not mean merely doing nothing or going away. And I think he says reading a magazine or a book, right? So he's not talking about ignoring a problem and then going in and distracting yourself. This be still and know that I am God does not mean just forget it happened. Don't acknowledge it. Oh, let it just go resolve itself. No. This is an action that you actually take to realign yourself, right? It's to remember that God is God. God is in charge. The God of your understanding has a better plan than you ever could for this, right? So when you do that, it realigns you to help you through the situation, not avoid it, right? We like to sit there and say, well, I got to take care of that. And sometimes we take all the necessary and appropriate actions we do and we leave the outcome to God. Well, that's what we always do, right? Our job is to show up and act in a virtuous, principled way. Our job is to show up and have as close to Christ-like and righteous character as we possibly can, right? And that be still and know that I am God gives us the space to remember that. It realigns us. It puts us in the proper orientation that we are of service to God and others rather than being of service to ourselves, rather than running through this world scared and anxious and feeling alone and trying to fight the world. It reminds us that we have a place and an opportunity to be of service. And when we do that, that's why it's called an antidote to fear, right? Or treatment against fear, more so. Because what happens is the fear becomes circumvented because the fear exists in the context of service to ourselves. But when it's in the service to God, when it's in the service to others, when it's to be doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, suddenly the fear doesn't make too much of an impact. Suddenly doing the right thing takes priority, and you have purpose and direction, and you practice this virtue, whatever it might be, to make a right decision, to make the decision that a God of your understanding would have you make, because it's not up to you. It never has been. I don't know about you, but for me, when I tried to make the world fit my narrative, I ended up in a really bad spot with drugs and alcohol, miserable and suicidal. That's where I ended up. 'Cause, 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 to remember this, to say, be still and know that I am God, places you in the right position to be effective, to make healthy, informed decisions rather than these impulsive ones. And the last thing I wanted to mention from this, he says, the still dwelling upon God is the quietest, but the most potent action of all. This pause, this moment, this stillness that we're talking about. This stillness where we contemplate God. This stillness where we find our proper orientation. That is the most potent place to be. That's where we find the most strength. That's where we find the most opportunity to overcome fear, to help people, to really grow in our knowledge and our understanding and our character, and take these right actions. And it puts you in a place, at least this is my experience with it, and it might not be yours right away, but it really does give me peace and strength and a solid foundation whenever I remember to do this, whenever I bring it in. And like I said, I am not perfect at this, but when I can do it, the surety I feel, the strength I feel, the knowing, if you understand what I mean by that, the knowing that I feel when that happens is incredible. And in a world of insecurity and unsurety, is that a word? With no guarantees right now as to what's going on, to have a knowing of God and His intention for you, what that power would have you be, that's serenity. That is serenity for me. And it's that peace of soul that Emmet Fox talks about. Emmet Fox has brought in many, many good things to my perspective and the way of living, including that understanding that serenity is a peace of soul. And this, be still and know that I am God. That's a doorway for it. And the rest of the verse I do want to make mention of, because this first line of this verse 10 is the most impactful for me. But it says, "I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth." That means lifted up. That will be praised or glorified. When you are practice this, be still and know that I am God. You're bringing Him into this world. You're bringing His Spirit into this world. You're bringing Him into this world through your actions. And you're raising Him up, or you're raising it up, or you're raising that energy up, or the universe up, whatever it might be. You're bringing it with you then. And God's will stand above the earth's. God's will stand above all. That power greater than yourself is greater than all. Whatever context that might be for you. I do want to say in closing, this can, for those who practice meditation, whether it's just contemplative meditation, this is a great thing to contemplate. Or whether you practice silent meditation, this is with breathing techniques or whatever it might be. This is a great one to say, to repeat as a mantra during those. and really get in touch. I have done both of these things. I've contemplated it. I've done breath work with this this verse, this be still and know that I am God. And it's really been impactful and eye-opening for me. So for those of you who practice meditation, I would fully encourage that. So, but that brings us to the end of the episode. I know it was a little bit shorter than most, but I wanted to make sure something was telling me this is where I needed to go today. So I wanted to put this one in there. But going forward, I will be doing Emmet Fox Sermon on the Mount right there. Emmet Fox Sermon on the Mount. And I will be reading the As a Man Thinketh chapter from that book, which is chapter 3. So I look forward to it. We might do a little bit comparative between James Allen and Emmet Fox. I have a feeling they're going to line up pretty well. Or I guess I know they do. But I might be mixing in some of the old short clips of the James Allen videos as well, just to get a refresher going in. So, but thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate it, and also the support. And if you would like to give me a like, a subscribe, a follow, whatever platform you're seeing these things on, we appreciate the support. So thank you so much for everything. We are on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the good stuff. Maybe I should go find a MySpace too. I don't know if that's still a thing, but maybe I should check that out. But thank you all for your time today. And until next time, thanks.